Hi there, so this is the Ebor meeting review, going over the best performances and indeed the best races over the 4 days there. And what a cracking meeting it was. And on the first day, we were served up an absolute treat in the Juddmonte International. There, it was supposed to be a match though between Constitution River and Ombudsman. Didn't transpire though in that way though, did it? Courtesy of Item beating Almaquam. I didn't foresee Almaquam running a massive race. He got his ground conditions and he showed what an honest and genuine horse he really is. He only just went down to Item, who in fairness didn't get the gap when it was available. Probably didn't have the pace for it in fairness. I think he's probably going to be a 1.5 mile horse in time there, is Item, but he ran really well to run down Almaquam. I'm sure the Champion Stakes at Ascot will be on his agenda. Item could well be going for the Arc de Triomphe potentially if the ground will be okay, but I'm sure the Breeders' Cup would suit him down to the ground, where he's more likely to get his ground there in November at Keeneland. But fantastic performances. Just a note on Ombudsman, I don't think it was made enough of the fact he was drawn in stall 1 prior to the race. It was always going to be difficult for him from there. And I think William Buick, if he had his time again, would probably have taken the pull out of the stalls and tried to go round the field in the early stages or round the back of the field and get a clear run down the outside. Instead, what happened, Colin Keane in the home straight never let William Buick out when he was trying to make his run up the straight. He therefore had to go more down towards the far rail. And when he did get going, he didn't really quicken either. I don't think good to soft ground is exactly what this horse wants. I think he's definitely more of a top of the ground horse. He ran okay, but he just wasn't at his best, given what happened in the early stages and indeed the ground conditions there. But that's racing. That's the conditions you're racing on, and it suited Almaquam. And Item probably just got away with it. Had he been running on Thursday, Almaquam probably might have beaten him, given that we had more rain overnight. But really good performance on the front too. Constitution River though, yes, he got het up in the paddock. Yes, he might have overtouched, raced over a little bit quicker during the early stages. But I don't think this horse, what he's achieved, has rivalled his reputation so far. And I've said this for a while now. I think if Ombudsman and him met on good to firm ground or even good ground, I would back Ombudsman to beat him next time they run. He's a good horse, Constitution River. I think he's Aidan O'Brien's best 3-year-old colt in the stable. He's won plenty of good races this year, but I just don't think he's as good as what everyone thinks he is. I could be completely wrong, but that's my opinion on Constitution River. The Yorkshire Oaks, though, on Thursday was the main highlight again, and this was a strange race, given the fact that Sugar Island went off at a real good clip in the early stages, and Ronan Whelan, he looked like he was going to get his plane home early by the way he was riding this one. Really attacked, especially coming off the back straight there. And Colin Keane, for me, on Kalpana, I think he just panicked, really, because the horse was that far clear. I know he has to go at some point, but I think he should have just held on to her. Me and my dad were actually chatting, and my dad was saying that if it was Lester Piggott, he'd have held on to Kalpana a hell of a lot longer and just produced her inside the final furlong. And I think she would have, if that would have been the ride she would have been given, I think she'd have won that race by at least 3 lengths. I think she was that dominant. Yes, Sparrow Newer got a little bit of trouble in running in behind, but the way the race was ran, I think it would have been really unfortunate how had Kalpana not won. And I think she was definitely the best horse in the race. Maybe Sparrow Newer was unlucky in the regard that she was unfortunate she didn't get a clear run. But like I said, I think Kalpana, how the race developed and when Colin made a challenge on Kalpana, I think left her very, very vulnerable inside the final furlong. And she did really well to just hang on. And she nearly got beaten because of the move Colin made. But he's won plenty of good races on her this year. I don't think he's rode her particularly well this year, though. I think obviously the King George, she won. But I think he would have got there too soon had he not received trouble in running. I don't think the Hardwick was his fault, because I think the horses in front of him just stopped and therefore he was left in front. And he certainly hit the front too soon on his reappearance at Newbury. But he has won all the races on her this year, so I'm probably talking rubbish there as well. But he ran a really good race there, Kalpana. I just hope she hasn't left the arc behind there with what she did on Thursday, but she did really well to win. The main highlight though on the Friday was the Nunthorpe, and once again this was another horse who paid for his exertions late on, but was always in control really, and that was Baccio, who went off like the speed of light in the early stages and had the race won from a very early stage under Juan Hernandez for Wesley Ward. Big credit to him for keeping this horse in England and targeting this race, and probably the ground was slightly against him as well. and it was a really good performance to win the race given the conditions. It was probably drying up at this stage, but it was still probably on the softer side of good, if not just good to soft. But it was a really good performance there from Baccio. The one to take out of this race, though, as everyone has seen, is Time for Sandals. She got no luck in running at the back of the field, and then she stayed on really well. For me, she'd have been a good second at the very least. I'm not saying she'd have won, because Baccio, like I said, had the race won from really a furlong into the race. But for me, Time for Sandals, next time she runs, it has to be of major interest. But I mean, everyone's seen it now. That's the problem with these things. But she ran really well. Really good runs as well from Starlust there and Rumstar, who were pretty solid horses at the moment, especially Rumstar for Johnny Portman, who's had a great year. And I think good old JM Jungle ran well. Just a point as well on the French horse, Rivenka. I don't think she looked particularly well, or he looked particularly well in the paddock. There's a few spots on that one's coat, and that I put a big question mark about that one going into the race. Still ran well in fifth from stall 12, which probably wasn't ideal, but a good run still. But it'll be interesting to see what that horse is like in the paddock next time that horse runs. That was Rivenka. But good performance from Baccio and Time for Sandals. Certainly very unlucky in the non-4 on Friday. On Saturday, though, we started off with the Strensel Stakes, and I thought this was a really good performance of Archivist. Yes, the horses in front of him went too hard in the early stages, and he can forgive a lot of those. I mean, Point Linus, who made the run, he was absolutely out on his feet near the end of the contest, was beaten over 20 lengths. But the horses that raced around Archivist are not bad horses, the likes of Sabre Strike and Persica, and Archivist put them away in very easy style, winning by 7.5 lengths. The time compared very favourably to Notable Speech's City of York victory, who we'll come on to in a moment. I know it's over 2 furlongs less, the City of York to the Strensel, but it was still a very good time comparison. And Archivist put them away. I think a handicap will at least have to give Archivist a rating of 120, if not more. Today, I think that's what I would certainly put him up to. And I think he's a Group 2 horse at the very least. And he's always been highly thought of. Went off a short price favourite for the John Smith's Cup when trained by William Haggis. And he did really, really well on Saturday. And I thought it was probably the performance of the day, actually, the way he performed. So Archivist certainly one to keep on side moving forward. And, of course, before that, he'd won the Goodwood Handicap from what is usually perceived to be a bad draw in the Golden Mile there. And certainly Hamid Al-Jahani's got him sparkling there in the summertime. So really good performance there from Archivist in the Strensel. Talking about the City of York, this was taken by Notable Speech, beating Lake Forest. I mean, those two had the best form coming into the race, so it's good to see them finish first and second. Lake Forest, I think, probably would have wanted the ground more on the quicker side, but I don't think he'd have beaten Notable Speech anyway, who's racked up a really good CV. Guineas winner, Sussex Stakes winner, Breeders' Cup winner, now a City of York winner. What a good Group 1 this was. And Marvel Man, in fairness, he ran really well for Andrew Balding, who had a magnificent week on the Naves Mile with 6 winners. What a fantastic week he's had. And he could even challenge Aidan O'Brien for the Trainers' Championship this season. Magnificent run from him. He would have appreciated the ground. 10 Bob Tony. I think the 7 furlongs was just on the sharp side for him. He flew home near the end, passed quite a lot of horses, but I think he needs to go back up to a mile for sure. And he ran with credit, as did Zavatiri, but then 2 of them definitely need to go back up in distance next time they run. But good performance from Notable Speech, and I was glad to see him get his head back in front there on Saturday. And of course, then we have the Ebor, the main handicap of the week, possibly even of the year. To be honest, I was glad to see Love Me Tender not win this race because it was so hard to evaluate this horse's form. No handicap mark given either, and the horse was ending up going off favourite for the biggest handicap of the year. And the horse pulled too hard anyway in finishing 9th. So I was almost glad to see that horse not win. Daiquiri Bay, though, I thought would run well. I didn't back the horse. He's a really honest character, though, is Daiquiri Bay. I remember seeing him at Chester last year, and he ran so straight to the line on what is not a difficult course to handle. And I thought then he's a really good horse. I actually backed him for the Melrose last year when Tarians beat him. And I thought, going into this race, I probably overthought it, thinking that Tarians maybe wasn't in love with York as maybe he should have been. But he did really well to get up to beat Hopewell Rock. Callum Rodriguez maybe... looking in reflection, he might have won the race. He dropped his whip a furlong out and there wasn't much in it at the line. Opportunity ran a really good race, giving £5 away to the first and the second, so a really good run from him again. And of course, Wafnan having the second and third in the big handicap there. I thought the horses, though, in behind were a little unlucky, the likes of Baylor Bay and indeed Ascending especially. I mean, they were both out the back in what was a steadily run Ebor, which is quite unusual. But Ascending had to come around the entire field at one point and was racing more on the flank. I think he was the unlucky horse. He ran really well in the race last year as well when finishing second. I didn't fancy him. He couldn't beat Daiquiri Bay on the form book, and he didn't again. But I think he's certainly a one to take out of it, as was Baylor Bay, who stayed on into 5th place. But really good run there, like I said, in what was a steadily run race. Hopewell Rock, I think he'll be heading to the Melbourne Cup next, and he's going to already booked James McDonald as George Bowie, so really exciting stuff for him. And I think we'll be seeing Ascending in something like an Irish Cesarewitch maybe later down the line. I thought he was really unlucky in that race there. But Daiquiri Bay, very solid horse, always tries hard, and who would have thought when he won at Newmarket earlier in the year, when he beat Hopewell Rock, that both of them would finish 1st and 2nd in the Ebor. So that's my thoughts on what was a fantastic 4 days at the Ebor meeting. Hope you enjoyed it too. If you like this video, please like it and indeed subscribe to the channel. And you can also check out my Patreon page where you can get all my tips and indeed analysis on there as well. Thanks very much and hope you have a great day.